Hello, kindergarten friends. It's Miss Nestrick, and I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit more about shapes. So we've been talking a lot about geometric shapes. Can you say geometric? So geometric shapes are the shapes with names, shapes that men and women made, that we came up with, that humans came up with, and they're names that are the same no matter what. So maybe if I say circle, you and your friend might think of a different size circle or a different color circle, but you both still picture a circle. If I say to picture a square or a triangle, you both picture a square and a triangle. They might be a different shape or a different color, a different size or a different color, but it's still the same shape. So geometric shapes are the same. Last week, you went on a nature walk to find organic shapes. Can you say organic? So organic shapes are not the same shapes that you would find. It's not like organic at the grocery store, like a something that's made without pesticides and chemicals on it, but it might have to do with fruits and vegetables. So organic shapes are shapes that we find in nature that are not made by man. So that might be fruits and vegetables, it might be leaves and flowers, it might be mulch and grass and butterflies and clouds. All of those things are organic shapes. So I'll show you a little picture that I did. So we've got geometric shapes. So these are geometric at the top: ovals, triangles, trapezoids, circles, squares, rectangles. These are all shapes that you've learned either in kindergarten or in preschool. And then organic shapes are shapes that are a little bit more free form that you would see out walking around in nature. Organic shapes are seen a lot more around you than geometric shapes. But don't think that geometric shapes aren't there. There are geometric shapes also all around you. Think about a door handle. Door handles are usually round or are a circle or a rectangle. A hanger that you put in your closet is a triangle. Pillows are squares, rectangles, and circles. So there are still things all around you that are geometric, but most of those things are made by humans, and organic shapes are just seen around you in nature that are not made by humans. So today we are going to start a new project using shapes, and I think we're going to get through all of them today. We'll cut out our shapes, and then next week when you come back, we're going to create a wacky shape monster. A wacky shape monster. But first we have to cut out our shapes. So if you have construction paper, you're gonna need construction paper, you're gonna need scissors and a pencil to cut out your shapes. In class, we've been using squares of paper, so I've been able to fold them with students, but I have construction paper at my house. I'm actually at my parents' house, but I have construction paper for when I used to do arts and crafts. So I have all sorts of colors, and so I want you to pick a couple colors you can use. We're going to cut out 6 shapes. So you can use 6 different colors, or you can use the same color for all of them, but these are going to be the colors that make up your wacky monster. So maybe you pick 3 colors that you really like, maybe you use all 6. I'll use 6 just so you can see the difference. So if you don't have it already, pause this video and go grab some colorful construction paper and some scissors and something to draw with. I would love it if you had a pencil just in case you want to erase the shape that you're drawing. So go grab those. So if you already have those, or if you just got back after pausing the video, I want you to pick one color of paper. I'm gonna start with orange because it's on top. We're gonna start with our geometric shapes. So the first shape that I want you to draw is a rectangle. So a rectangle can be done lots of different ways, but it's basically a square that has been pulled apart. So it's a long square. So I drew a rectangle in the corner of my paper. It's helpful to draw in the corner or on the sides of your paper. So because if you draw right in the middle, you have to go a long way. Your scissors have to travel a really long way to get to it. So once you draw your rectangle, I want you to stop and look at my scissors. So these are my scissors. They say Miss Nestrick on them. So when we have our scissors, we want to be really careful with them because scissors are sharp. Scissors are sharp on the pointy end, and if they're open, the blades are sharp. So when we're not using our scissors, we always want to keep them closed and flat on the table so that if they fell off the table, if they're closed, they won't hurt anybody. And then we won't accidentally, if we move our hand really fast, we won't accidentally cut ourselves on our scissors. So we always want to leave them shut. We also want to leave them on the table because we don't want to play with our scissors. If we're poking around, we might accidentally hurt someone, and that wouldn't be good. If you haven't used scissors before, your thumb goes in the little circle. So like I said, there are shapes everywhere. So we've got a circle right here, so your thumb goes there. And then depending on your hand and your scissors, you can fit 2 or 3 fingers in the little hole underneath. You always want to hold your scissors with your thumb on top. I had a lot of friends this week who were trying to cut like this, and that's really uncomfortable. So if you flip your hand over, it'll make it a lot easier. So I'm gonna stand up while I cut so you guys can see. So I'm gonna cut out my, my rectangle. So I'm gonna hold, I'm right-handed. I write with my right hand, so I'm gonna hold my scissors in my right hand. And then I'm gonna hold my paper in my left hand. So I have one hand with scissors, one hand with paper. I'm gonna start by opening and closing my scissors on my rectangle. I might go a little bit past my rectangle so that I have room to turn my scissors. I'll turn my paper, very carefully cut down the line. I'll turn it again. And then I'll turn it one more time. Don't worry if you have some of your lines left over. We will put the glue on our side with our markings so that this will go face down because the other side is clean. So you still have a clean side. So I've cut out my rectangle. Once you've cut out your rectangle, you can just set it aside for right now. We won't need it. So we've got our rectangle. Pick another color. You can use the same color or a different color, whichever you would like. On this paper, I want you to draw 2 squares. 2 squares. So instead, not just one, we're gonna draw 2. So squares have the same, they're the same size on all 4 sides. So I've got 2 squares. 2 squares. And if you want to go back in class, we actually did 2 orange rectangles. We did 2 rectangles. So if you want to go back into a second rectangle, now that I'm thinking about it, it would be nice to have options when we do our monster at the end to have lots of different shapes. So maybe if you wanted to use 2 rectangles, you could, or you could just pick from one. So I just drew a second rectangle on my orange paper. I'm going to cut that out. So I'll have 2 rectangles. Then on my second sheet of paper, I have 2 squares. 2 squares. So just like with my rectangles, I'm holding with my left hand, chomping with my right. If you use a pencil, when you use a pencil, if you use your left hand, it'll just be the opposite. So that time I cut my whole square out so I can go down. I have less paper to hold on to. But I'm making sure that my fingers stay out of the way of my blades on the front and back. We don't want to cut ourselves. So right now I'm cutting out my 2 squares. If you feel like you drew your squares too small, you can draw them bigger again. Whoop, I just dropped mine on the floor. My squares are big enough to add details to if I wanted to add them later. It's kind of hard to show you size virtually. So do your best, just don't draw them teeny tiny. But if you want to draw them really big, you can. I guess my square is about as big as my thumb. It's about as big as my thumb, but you can absolutely go bigger than that. So you should have 2 rectangles and 2 squares. Once you have those, I want you to get another color if you're using all 6, or you can use the same color. We're gonna move on to another shape. So let's see. maybe I'll use yellow. I'm gonna use yellow. So on your next sheet of paper, this is for our third shape, I want you to draw 2 triangles. So triangles can have all sides the same size, or they can have one long side and 2 shorter sides. Maybe one side's a little shorter. Maybe you want to draw in pencil a couple triangles on your paper and then pick your favorite ones to cut out. So I just drew 3 triangles, but I'm only going to cut out 2 of them. So I've got my triangles. So when you've cut out your triangles, when you've drawn your triangles, carefully cut them out. Remember to watch where your paper holding hand is to make sure you don't cut your fingers. Keep your fingers out of the way. Feel free to pause the video at any point if you feel like I'm going too fast. You can always press the pause button and catch up. So once you've finished with your circles, pick another color or one of the colors you've already used. Either is okay. And on this page, I want you to draw a circle. Not a teeny tiny circle. Draw a circle that's about the same size as your palm. So this is the palm of your hand. It's what all your fingers are connected to. So I want you to draw a circle about the size of your palm. Don't trace your palm. Just do about as big as your palm. Your palm's not quite a circle, so it wouldn't work very well if you traced it. So here's my circle. Here's my hand. So it's about the same size as the middle of my hand. Just about. When we're cutting our circles, we cut a little differently. Because circles are round, I'm going to use my scissor hand to chomp and my other hand that's holding my paper to spin. So my scissor hand will stay still and just open and close my chompers. And then my paper hand will spin the paper for me. So I chomp and spin. This helps make not so many sharp bumps on my circle. So here's my circle. So now you have 2 rectangles, 2 squares, 2 triangles, and 1 circle. We have 2 more shapes to go. So I'm going to use, I think I'm gonna use light blue. I think I'll use light blue. So on my light blue paper, I want you to draw a, let's do a diamond. Let's draw a diamond. So a diamond is kind of like a square. It has 4 sides, but it's pointed. Maybe your diamond looks more like a kite. Maybe it looks like a kite. Maybe it looks more like a baseball field, the inside of a baseball field where we have all 4 sides about the same length. So draw a diamond and then carefully cut it out. So on for your last shape, you can use a different color or the same color you've used before. I want you to draw an organic shape. So I'll hold up my examples again. So an organic shape might be a flower, or a leaf, a butterfly. Maybe it's a weird shape that you've never seen before. Maybe a puddle or a paint splat. Maybe some wood or a cloud. Think about what shape you want to use for an organic shape. Your organic shape, when we cut it out, if I make this butterfly, I might not cut out the antennas because they're really thin lines. Or I could go back and I could make my antennas into shapes so that they're thicker and so I wouldn't cut them off. Or if I did a flower, I'll just cut out the outside of my flower and not the inside. I'm just gonna do a paint blob for mine. So I'm gonna draw a pretty big blob of paint on my last sheet of paper. So organic shapes usually, not always, but usually organic shapes have a lot of curves. Curves are really hard for us to cut out, especially when they're really small. So it'll be easier for you to cut this out if you draw it a little bigger. But don't stress out. Don't go very quickly. This one will take you a little longer to cut out. So I'm going to stand up and cut so that you guys can watch, if you would like, how I'm slowly cutting out my curves. Just like with my circle, I'm spinning my paper with my left hand, with my paper holding hand, and chomping with my scissor holding hand. You have to go a lot slower when there are lots of curves. You might need to ask help from an adult if you get to a really skinny part that you need help cutting out, a really thin part. But I want you guys to try your hardest to cut out these shapes all on your own. It's great practice. And all of the friends at school will also be cutting these same shapes out. Really carefully try to get those curves. All right. So here's my paint splat. So now I have my paint splat, my circle, my diamond, 2 triangles, 2 rectangles, and 2 squares. So you should have 6 different shapes, 6 different shapes. So maybe you might want to put these in a baggie. You might want to put these inside your sketchbook, nice and safe. Because next week, we're going to glue these pieces together on another sheet of paper. I really like to glue things down on black paper because I think that it helps the colors show up a lot better. If we glue on black paper, they show up better than on white. But you could also pick any color construction paper. Maybe pick one that you haven't used to cut out your shapes today, because then it'll show up a lot better. So if I put if I glued my light pink paint blob onto my light pink paper, it's kind of hard to see. It blends right in. So think about what color paper you might want to glue down onto next week. You can absolutely use white. White works just as fine. So you can use white too, but you'll need glue, a marker, pencil, or crayon to add some details onto your monster, and a sheet of paper to glue it down on. And let me think if there was anything else that I needed to tell you. I'm so sorry, the phone's ringing. I think that's it. But make sure you have your shapes next week. Maybe put them in your sketchbook. Oh, that was it. Next week, we will also do a little sketch before we glue down our monster of what we want it to look like. So start thinking how you might combine your shapes to create a monster. If you need any help with this project, or if you have any questions, know you can always message me on Schoology and I'll respond to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys really soon. Adios.